feared and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Ooh, we are chasing a cup tonight and every night, not a freaking pennant, because this team only provides us with aneurysms here in Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Phillies have played a doubleheader today, kind of. Lost both ends of it, but it was real close. I am Shane of the Chase'n The Pennant Podcast, and I am joined with four of our hosts tonight. We're all incredibly pleased to be talking Philadelphia Phillies baseball to you. This is literally moments after the dropped doubleheader here on Sunday. First, I have Andrew. How are you doing, man?
I'm all right. Very rough day with the Phillies teams there, and now Embiid might be hurt. So very not good day in Philadelphia sports.
No, it's not awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all those great news things prior to recording. Then I have Borek, your typical counterpart. Andrew, Borek, how are you doing?
Could be a lot better. I mean, at least Spencer Howard looks solid for us. I started laughing when we first came on because of Biscuit's background. He changed his thing too. But, yeah, the Phillies have sucked so far this season. So that's all I have to say. Just move on.
Fair enough. Then I got Rob. Rob, it's been a little while, man. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a minute. Obviously, could be a lot better. I really wish I could forget everything that happened today.
Yeah, man, we all do. And then we have everybody's favorite. We got Biscuit. Biscuit, who originally came on sporting a background of JT Realmuto, which all made us all laugh, and has changed it mid-podcast start to a sign that says the Phillies suck, and it couldn't be more accurate. So, Biscuit, how are you?
The Phillies just really suck, man. I woke up so chipper today. I was so excited. A great win last night. They scored some runs. The pitching was phenomenal. I woke up ready to watch too, and guess what? The Phillies said, "You're not going to enjoy this," and I did. So, there, you know what? There was the silver lining of watching Spencer Howard's major league debut, but this offense and the bullpen, man. We'll get into it, I'm sure, but what the hell, man?
Not
yeah,
great.
The Phillies said, "Not today, Philadelphia. You thought you were having a good day? Screw you, not today."
Today ain't the day. Before we get rapidly into what will end up to being a therapy session at this point for the Sunday games, let's actually start on the game last night. They do take the series opener. Almost everything clicked for them. They win last night 5-0. The offense looked, fine. Still not what this offense should be doing. But they put up 5 runs, majority of it early in the game in the third or fourth inning. But more importantly, I think for this Phillies team right now, Jake Arrieta looks competent. Like, he looks okay again. Jake Arrieta is someone who has not had a good relationship here. Or the fans have not had a good relationship with Jake Arrieta. We were displeased with the money that was handed to him and felt that he has not lived up to that contract, and he certainly hasn't. And Biscuit, you mentioned something, I think it was you anyway, that mentioned something in our group chat. You know, if he can kind of regain form even a little bit and pitch the way that he pitched last night and the way that he pitched last week and becoming an integral part and a legitimate 3, does that suddenly make this contract worth it? Now, you poached that to us, at least I think it was you.
It was.
Okay, good. You've had a day to sit on that comment. Are you still going to stand strong with that one? Do you feel like if he's an integral piece to this team and we make a deep postseason run this year, you're okay with this contract?
Well, here's how I look at it. You look back on how he's performed the last 2 years with the team. He has obviously not been good, and it hasn't been really pleasant to watch him. But I think he was really like only one of the much larger issues here. Like in 2018, the pitching like overall was not great. He wasn't the only culprit. I mean, he pitched fine in the first half, but the second half's really when he went, when he went to shit. But he wasn't the only pitcher to really have those types of issues. Same carrying over to 2019. Plus, there's just other inconsistencies with the team as well. So how I look at it is he hasn't been the only problem. this season, if he continues the way he's been performing, in the last 2 starts, I think he really does have a chance to contribute and become not just really a solid, 1-2-3 punch, but it could be that 1-2-3-4 punch with Spencer Howard now up as well. And if that secures the Phillies a postseason appearance, then yeah, I think it's worth it, especially if he's as good as he's been this year and he continues that. He's only helping now in this regard, whereas he wasn't helping before, but you really can't sit there and pinpoint him as the only problem. So yeah, I think if the Phillies make it to the playoffs, I'm not saying that means we should re-sign him or bring him back or anything like that, but I think it would make the contract and everything worth it if he really helps us out this year.
I immediately reacted in the text, and if I didn't in the group chat, I know I reacted just on my own. It made me crunch my phone. I was so angry because I don't hate Jake Arrieta the way that a lot of people do, and I feel like it's just because every year I've gone in and said, oh, he's back this year. Last year it was a knee. The year before, or 2 years ago, it was a knee. Last year it was the elbow. It was always something, and I just kind of always hoped. And then he came out and he was Philly's version of Jake Arrieta. So I got immediately angry when I saw that text. Not gonna. All right. So for everyone we're not posting these videos yet, but we're messing around with videos on podcast.
Wait, does it show up backwards for you guys?
No. That's perfect.
You have mine's the backwards one.
So I love it.
Yours is fine.
No,
too.
yours is fine too.
Yeah.
So
I see it as backwards.
I know you two do, but it's presenting it to the rest of us. It's all perfect. So for you guys who don't know or haven't been listening to the last few shows, we've started to go to video recording. Obviously, with COVID, we can't all be in the same studio. And Andrew being out in Oklahoma City, Scott out in LA, other guys spread out throughout PA and New Jersey. We were doing these all audio only, and it was tough. We couldn't see each other. And now I'm starting to think we should go back because Biscuit comes in with a classic JT Realmuto background, which is fantastic, and mid-open changes it to Phillies suck, and that throws us off our game. And then mid-little rant here, and Rob changes his to fire Clentak, a giant white screen with some red letters, so you can't miss it. So that tells you the mood of us here. We're not happy here at CTP. And like I said, we're gonna get to a lot of the stuff that we have loathed throughout the early parts of this kind of broken up season so far for the Phillies. But I do kind of want to start on a few positive things. And one of those positive things to this point was Jake Arrieta, and has been the starting pitching. So you could take it back to Eflin, the last game of the Yankees series. Let me see. I want to pull up his line real quick. But only went 4 innings. Looked like he could have kept going, but again, he's a guy who's not fully stretched out at this point. But the Philadelphia Phillies starters through the first 3 innings of Spencer Howard's debut today had an ERA just over 3. So they're not the problem. You're even putting in there the pitiful start from Velasquez in his first opener against the Marlins. To this point, we look like we can be a competent team through 6 or 7 innings every single night. So, Rob, I'm going to pose you the question. I'm a guy who hates 7-inning doubleheaders. I think it takes away from what the game is. But it definitely plays to the Phillies side right now. How many more rainouts do you want? How many more COVID suspensions do you want of play so that we can just only ever play 7 innings and never have to get to the bullpen once everyone's fully stretched out?
Oh, man. I mean, given the Phillies, their struggles with the bullpen, when you consider that, then yeah, I want more of this stuff. But I'm a purist like you. I'm a traditionalist like you are. I hate 7-inning baseball. And the funny thing about it is I didn't keep track of how long the second game lasted, but that first 7-inning game lasted just about as long as a regular 9-inning game would.
Who started that one?
That was the human rain delay.
Yes.
Human rain delay, Vince
Anyone
Velasquez.
else? That's a 2-hour game.
Nah, but to answer your question though, yes, it does ride in favor of the Phillies. I think that as you get these arms, these starting pitchers stretched out a little bit more, you can try to ride them, 6 innings, or maybe even try to get a complete 7 from them if they're pitching well enough and not have to use that bullpen at all. Given the point in the season where they're at right now, yeah, you do need to get them out of there after 4 1/3, 4 2/3, 5 innings, and you have to use the bullpen a little bit. It's unfortunate, but it kind of is what it is. But yeah, if they have any more of these situations later in the season, I'd love to see them push the starting pitchers a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think you'll see it. I think it's really, really hard to sit there and ramp yourself up for a normal traditional spring, be essentially the last sport to kind of shut things down, and then be in a limbo state without a plan further than both the NBA and the NHL. Soccer returned, golf returned. Baseball handled it really poorly, and then they come back with this really shortened, abbreviated summer camp. And ask these guys to kind of ramp themselves back up again and get to 80 pitches, by opening day. I think it's tough. And, I think as the season progresses, you're going to start to see Girardi, out of necessity at this point, kind of push these pitchers. And as long as we're staying in baseball games with the starters in, it would not shock me if we are one of the teams that, has average innings pitched for a starter be over 6. We at this point have to limit the amount of times that we have to see Trevor Kelly's of the world take the baseball. It's unbelievably frustrating watching this bullpen right now. And it's frustrating watching Girardi attempt to manage it because to this point, he has not had a strong year either. Let's go on to a couple other positive things throughout the early parts of this season before we really start to just beat the hell out of this team like they deserve. New baseball, it's different than what we all kind of grew up with. We saw manufactured runs, we saw base stealing, we saw hit and runs, we saw the ball in play a lot, and just the 3 true outcomes is kind of what happens now. And in that respect, we have seen some success. To this point, the Phillies, I believe, had struck out 53 times. This was up until the night game or second game of the doubleheader. Had struck out 53 times on the year, and had only walked 44 times, and that split is crazy. So we're walking at a high clip, namely at this point, Rhys Hoskins, who I rip consistently on Twitter. So let's not get this twisted. I still loathe what he's doing right now, but in today's game, there's a place for it. But Borek, I'm going to go to you in terms of what this kind of new thing is. We see this team when they hit home runs, they're going to win baseball games. Their starting pitching is going to get them enough of the way, and they're going to constantly keep them in this game. They're going to make other pitchers work. That has carried over from the Gabe Kapler era. What do you kind of make of the Philadelphia Phillies' overall offensive approach this year? We know that it's slow going, but there's some things to build on.
I think in the grand scheme of things, it's a system that should work. The problem is people are hitting out of order. People aren't hitting, and Rhys Hoskins is not really a 2-hitter. JT's not, even though he's hitting really well this year, he's still not really a cleanup hitter in all things considered. He's more of a guy you want probably 3, actually. But so then you could put Bryce as a cleanup. But their problem is they're looking at pitches right down the plate. Hoskins is obviously a big culprit of that. And then swinging at ones that they should pull. They're trying to go the other way, and the pitchers they should try to go the other way. They're trying to pull. It's the only guys that have been actually hitting the pitch where it's thrown have been. He didn't look good, but he had one bat at today. Other than that, Heasley's looked good hitting it in all places, and then Goose, and then obviously JT. But JT's looked great since the start of the season. Where Bryce even at times looks a little pull happy early on. He hit it the other way that one play, but he looks like today you could tell that first pitch of the at bat he tried for the homer. Then he got another inside pitch later in the game, and he tried for a homer on that high fastball, where I think the team just needs to go back to the basics. We saw Kutch kind of in game 1 just take what was given to him. He got a sac fly. Then he also just fought one off and broke his bat, and that's the only reasons we scored for a guy that got subbed in late. So I think they just need to take what's given to them. Don't be stupid and don't overthink it. I think some batters are overthinking it. If you get a great first pitch, sometimes you got to swing it. You got to be like Chase Utley, pick your spot. Don't be an idiot, but be like Chase and kind of know when to pick your spots. Because Hoskins could be a great hitter if he does that, because he gets some meatballs as a first pitch, because pitchers just know he never swings it.
Yeah, I think you bring up a lot of really valid things. And I'm glad you kind of took it this way. because like I said, I know sitting here and reading all the things in the new wave of baseball, the three true outcomes that the Phillies are kind of living and dying by that brand, and there's not enough of a blend of that brand of the old school and new school, so to speak. And it's tough, and I do think that a lot of that rests on Girardi right now. It's frustrating. It's the same problems we've seen year in and year out. Last year, people gave Gabe Kapler a lot of shit for the exact same things. People aren't coming at Girardi yet right now. But philosophically, there's some things going on right now in this Philadelphia Phillies organization from the top on down that just are broken. They have not worked. I mean, 2 championships in, 17 centuries of baseball. Like, that's a fucking joke. So it's concerning. So I think you brought up a lot of really good and valid concerns. We're going to get to a lot of them in a bit here. But let's go to, so I'm going to go to Andrew on JT a little bit here. First of all, I don't know why people are running on JT ever. I mean, baseball, this is in a sport that we're seeing less and less steals and stolen base attempts, by the year. Why are people testing the best arm in baseball? I mean, he has the quickest pop time and he throws the hardest down to second base. Those two things kind of always go hand in hand there. And he's accurate as fuck. The guy doesn't miss. And for as much as I don't like what Kingery's done this year, having him up the middle and having Didi up the middle, you have 2 really short-handed guys. So I don't know why the hell anyone's throwing or running on this team. And then you see what he's doing in the box. And to this point, Didi and Bryce were kind of carrying the offense at this point. I don't think they've ever clicked at the same time, but early impressions on a guy who we really, really need to pay.
Yeah, I mean, he knows that he's under the contract year, and I don't think he'd be playing any different, but that's going to elevate anybody's game when they're trying to show out and get that contract as well. And to your point about the base, with all the analytics today, why would you try to steal? The analytics say this guy's going to get thrown out, so it kind of goes against everything the game is saying in today. And no, I mean, JT just looks comfortable up there. I mean, it looks like he knows what's coming before the pitch is even being thrown. He understands what the pitcher's done. I mean, he clearly does the preparation that it takes to know what the pitcher throws and everything. And it looks like, and he just sits back on everything. When he comes up to the plate, I mean, I know I'm comfortable in saying I think he's going to get a hit here. He's going to get on base somehow. Even then once he gets out, it's not like he's rolling anything over. He's hitting everything hard, and it's all line drives too. It's not even it's pop-ups or anything. He's just doing everything right. And I mean, if I was the GM, I'd get a contract done by the end of the week, but I don't think that's happening till the off season. But no, my first impressions are just phenomenal, and you can't ask for anything more from him, honestly.
No, you can't. And one of the things that I think at this point I like most is we're seeing player after player kind of go to bat for him right now. You get Harper, who's signing his name in the air after he hits home runs. You have Wheeler coming out, who early season, really impressive stuff from him so far. But, him, a large part of why he came here, he gets to throw to JT. You have to take the fact that your 2 biggest acquisitions each of the last 2 years said, hey, I need JT here, or I came here because JT's here. To not bring him back would be complete malpractice. I don't know what's grounds for firing anymore in this organization. I think that numerous people should have lost their jobs some time ago, but I have to believe in some way, if JT is not, and this is not purely on Clentak, this is still a money issue with Middleton, but at a certain point, people got to be losing jobs over this. So it is frustrating. But the one thing that I most enjoy, and I know it's going to end up costing the Phillies more as a result, I like the little bit of an FU that he's putting up right now. I like the fact that he has been our most consistent baseball player every single night. So that's a big thing. So let's get into some of the issues. Obviously today I'm a little bit better now. So Sean, when you listen back to this, man, Sean was supposed to be on the show with us, and it had a Skype issue, so he couldn't get in on the call. But that 15 minutes we waited for you, Sean, My God, did that help me calm down? Because you guys are about to get a just completely unhinged and just all over the place, off the rails version of me. I am not a calm person when I see bad baseball, and I'm not a calm person when I see the exact same issues over and fucking over. I just want new issues. Even if we suck, I just want to suck at something else, but see progress in the things that we sucked at yesterday. Every single year, it's the same fucking team, the same issues. Absolutely horrendous. One thing that is not a same issue, although it was partially towards the back end of last year, is Jean Segura. I have in my notes here, Jean Segura eats my ass. Because he does. This guy, I don't know at what point in time he stopped being or thinking that me being Jean Segura isn't enough. For fuck's sake, man, there is a place for 300 hitters, because this isn't an empty 300. This is not a Ben Revere, 310 season where it's just slap singles, with a little chicken cluck. Like, this is not what Gene is. Gene can run into a few throughout the year. Gene's going to get you 10, 15 home runs by accident, especially with the way that these stadiums are now, with short alleyways and the tighter seams on baseballs. Gene's going to run into some power. He's got gap-to-gap power with doubles. He's a really fucking productive 300 bat-to-ball kind of guy. And he's decided to attempt to be Bryce Harper. I don't fucking know why. I don't remember which one of you had said it in the group text. It may have actually been you, Rob, who had mentioned, you believe that continually putting him in a prime RBI spot as opposed to a more traditional contact spot or get on base spot maybe is kind of hurting his mindset as he goes up to the plate. And now he feels like he needs to be that RBI guy, in part maybe because Gene should theoretically be a 2-hitter and Reese should theoretically be a 5-hitter, but they've just inverted mindsets and both sucked at what they're attempting to do. I'm not entirely certain, but is there any fixing Gene Segura at this point for you, Rob? And if there is, what do you think is kind of the appropriate place for him to get the most out of him?
Well, first off, Gene Segura needs to figure out where the fucking strike zone is. He needs to go.
Well, he's never been good at that.
He needs to go talk to Andrew McCutchen, who is the
Why?
strike
He
zone
sucks
aficionado.
right now too.
Well, he sucks right now, but throughout the course of his career, he's been excellent at knowing what's a ball and what's a strike. Now, given, maybe he's played a few games with guys like Angel Hernandez behind the plate and umpires who have no clue where the strike zone is, and that'll fuck you up a little bit. But Gene Segura has the absolute worst idea of what a strike zone is that I have ever seen in my entire life. He tries to be Vlad Guerrero up there. He tries to swing at pitches that are at his neck. He tries to swing at pitches that are at his feet, and then I'll take one right down the middle of the plate. It's so frustrating. That said, I do think that if he can ever pull his head out of his ass, he's a 2-hole guy, which is where he was for the majority of last year. He needs to be that guy who's at the top of the order. Once he gets back to, if he ever does get back to hitting that 300 and getting on base, he lost a little bit of weight. He stole a base today. He showed off. He's still got some wheels on him. That could be a productive thing at the top of the order. If he can get on base and kind of set the table for the meat of the order, that'll help out not just him. It'll also help out Bryce. Hopefully it'll help out Reese if they can find a good spot in the order for him, and certainly JT as well.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a not talked enough thing, or not talked enough about thing. There we go. Last year, the success of this offense, getting a guy who saw and worked a lot of pitches, had power, and just was an on-base machine in Andrew McCutchen out of the leadoff hole, and one of the best base runners in all of baseball. To have Gene follow him, a guy who, double play depth, you leave that part of the field exposed a little bit, even through shifts. And that's kind of where Gene's sweet spot is. Like, Gene wants to punch that baseball over the second baseman's head or into right field. That's a guaranteed first and third. Like I said, I look back at it's like a modern day version of what Juan Pierre and goddamn, I'm blanking on his name.
Luis
Castillo at second base. Back for that Marlins team. Like, if one of them got on, the other's getting on too. And guess what? It's first and third at a minimum, and they're at least scoring 1 run that inning. It was just automatic. And that's how they were last year through the first 55, 58 games that Andrew McCutchen was there. Then McCutchen gets hurt, and then Gene Segura turns into this version of Gene Segura that we're kind of seeing now. If we can get that right again, if we can get a 2-hole hitter like a Gene Segura who can just realize his role and maximize his actual skill set, I actually think it would help Andrew McCutchen, another guy who is just looks lost up there again. This is a guy who notoriously does not, he's like Freddie Freeman. He does not swing through pitches. He is always going to make contact. He's swinging through 5 and 7 pitches a night right now without making contact. He's swinging outside of the strike zone. A guy who notoriously only swings at strikes, doesn't strike out looking a lot. I think that there's pressure there up and down the lineup of guys being out of place. And I do think that Rob, not unlike you said in our text, bringing a guy like Gene Segura up in that 2-hole takes a little bit of the pressure off of Andrew McCutchen and puts things back to a little bit more natural place in that lineup. Then you have to find a place for Rhys Hoskins, who right now, I hear it's tough. You have two schools of thought on Twitter right now. You have the guys who sit there and say, well, he's getting on base 45% of the time. And it's true, and that's important if he could run. And he can. And it's true and important if he wasn't being counted on to be our second or third RBI guy. He has 1 RBI through now 9 or 10 games this year. That's inexcusable. Having him in that 2-hole robs a potential skill set of his that we need. So I think putting him as a protection piece later in the meat of that order, as opposed to 2, would also really help a guy like Rhys Hoskins. Biscuit, I see you over there shaking your head at something like that. What would you do with Rhys Hoskins at this point?
I think I'd like him almost hitting 5th or 6th behind Didi Gregorius. I agree, going back to Borek's first point, some of these guys are just batting in places they should not be batting. Gene Segura should not be batting 5th or 6th in this batting lineup. He is not an RBI guy. And I think, as also mentioned, because he's in that RBI spot, he's trying to swing for the fences, and that is not Gene Segura, as you mentioned, Shane. He is supposed to just keep the ball in play, get it right, like you said, in that sweet spot, up the middle, base hit contact, moving people along. That is what Gene Segura has excelled at, and that's what made him a good player all those years before he came to Philadelphia. Like, he has talent. He is a good ball player, and he is a natural hitter. It is not, like you said, an empty 300. So why is he batting in an RBI spot? He should be in that 2-hole. Looking at the success we had last year with him and McCutchen getting on, he should just go back into that spot. And I think having Bryce at 3rd, having JT, for what it's worth, I think is doing okay in the cleanup spot right now. I think having him there, Didi 5th, and Rhys 6th, I just think it adds a little bit more, like, it makes it almost feel like the lineup's a little bit more deeper. And you have Rhys Hoskins in that spot now where he doesn't need to kind of be the guy getting everyone, moving people along, because you're right, getting on base is important, but he's not really moving anyone along in that regard. Like, it's just kind of taking him, like, it isn't the same, and you're not going to manufacture runs that way. So I think there needs to be some spots changed. Gene Segura, he just is not an RBI guy. He just isn't. He never really was. It doesn't make sense to really have him in the middle of the lineup. He someone who should be batting closer to the top or really closer to the bottom, but I don't know. It needs to change, because you're right. We're gonna live or die with the 3-run with the 3 outcomes, but they need to go back to manufacturing runs. This lineup really is not built to just hit home runs the whole time.
It's not. What's up, Andrew?
I was gonna say I get put him at like 5 or 6, but I would honestly try put him at 4 first, because I would think if you go back to what he had last year, McCutchen, Segura, Harper, and then Hoskins, with the way Hoskins is kind of struggling right now, if you put him behind JT, I feel like JT is going to lose a lot of good pitches and a lot of good at bats, because teams are going to work around him to get to Rhys. So if you put Hoskins in between Harper and JT, Hoskins will get a lot of better pitches where you might be able to see him come out of his slump a little bit there, and JT can still get his pitches with Gregorius behind him. So I think I'd try Hoskins at 4 first before, and then if he starts struggling at 4, you might have to think about maybe giving him days off for other guys that are hitting if he can't get going at 4 or 5.
Find me a guy that's fucking hitting. That's insane. But look, protection in the lineup, though, I think, each of you kind of said it appropriate. We're not built to just hit home runs. Like, we hope it. We're hoping that one of the 3 or 4 guys who can really mash run into 1 or 2. And that's how we kind of bulk our runs in there. But when you do take a look at this lineup, we actually almost, it's bizarre. Like if you take a look at the older, more traditional way of thinking in baseball, where your leadoff guy's fast, your second guy, is a big contact guy, your third hitter's your best hitter on the team, your fourth hitter's got the most power, and then your fifth hitter, is a guy who's maybe a little strikeout prone but can run into some as well. We almost have just 3 sets of 1 through 5s. We should never really find a lull in a lineup like this if managed appropriately. And I think to this point, it's been a struggle to sit here and get on board with Girardi's decision making and his process and seeing what we're seeing. I mean, across the board at this point, him and Dylan both, to sit here and look at this lineup and look at the offensive struggles that we have had in terms of putting the ball in play. It's tough to sit there and go to sleep at the end of every night and say, yeah, I'm comfortable with what we look like. I'm comfortable, with Rhys Hoskins not being an RBI man, not being a power guy, having 1 home run in his last, I think they said 39 games or something. It's insane. That can't be. I couldn't sleep. I'm not sleeping at night now. I'm sitting here thinking about this awful ass Phillies team. It's tough. And I don't understand how people making these decisions haven't begun to sit there and say, hey, this is a 60-game season, man. We got to figure some shit out. We don't have time to let these guys work it out. So it's been frustrating. That's all I can say. Another guy who, and I feel like everyone's going to get angry at me, at least on this podcast. I feel like most of the listeners will be pretty on board with it. But a guy that I don't think I ever need to see in a Phillies uniform again right now is Scott Kingery. This is a bad baseball player. At the end of the day, he's a beautiful man. I love him for the flow. We need him here to look good. But at this point, he ain't that dude. If we believe that Gene Segura can at least get back to being some semblance of Gene Segura, move Gene to second, you bring up Alec Boehm, and you throw him at third, and you see what happens. But right now, Scott Kingery is a fucking train wreck up there. He's another guy with whom I've watched grow throughout this minor league system, be very good at what he's very good at. I've seen him increase his power numbers each year. He has increased his strikeouts with that, but he's still notoriously a guy who creates a lot of contact, makes a lot. He is fast as hell. Get him on the bases and watch him fly. That guy just needs to get to first base somehow. And somewhere along this way, we've created this guy who sits there and thinks, let me just attempt to launch every single thing that we have. And he looks fucking terrible. Borek, what are you seeing right now that could kind of dissuade me to sit there and think, you know what, give Kingery another week. Give him another month. Let's see this thing out.
I was going to say, it broke up there for a second. I was going to say, for Scotty, I mean, he just looks off. I think they ruined his swing last year. I saw it. I was going to a lot of games last year once he started doing exactly what you said, trying to just kind of tear the cover off the ball, saying it in a different way rather than playing his own simplistic game, which is high contact rate and then using his speed to his advantage. And then I don't think Dylan obviously ever fixed much of anybody that got destroyed last year, because it hasn't seemed like the case other than Adam Hazley, because Goslin was hitting very well, but Hazley also hit 318 in the last, I remember that stat popped up in the last 10 games last year, so he didn't even really fix him either. He just kept doing his thing. So, I mean, that I don't think this hitting philosophy as of yet is really proving to be any different. I mean, it doesn't seem like you said to start the pod. It seems we're doing the same mistakes, looking at stuff, like I said, down the middle. Kingery's doing all the same. He pulled a pitch that was on the outside that normally when he's going good, I remember watching yesterday's game, he would just poke down the line and get a double out of that with his speed. He just looks really off. I was telling Andrew this the other day. I think he should get a mental day. He's a guy that I think he got one today, but I think he's a guy that needed a whole day. He probably just should not have been put in general if we were going to give him a blow, because I think he's a guy that just needs that whole day and then a practice to really work on his timing and all that crap to get him going again, because he needs one of our hitters to really get in line with him and help him out and get going. Maybe if Kutch gets going again, because you don't want Gene helping him out right now. He looks like crap. So
I don't want Gene helping anybody out with anything.
Yeah.
I don't want Gene to make a fucking sandwich. I don't want him to pour a drink. I don't want him to go to the water cooler for anyone. Sit your ass on the end of the thing. Just figure it out. Just figure it out.
Well,
Look at tape on yourself and figure it out.
Yeah, I was going to say, though, with Scotty, if we keep Gene in, though, and put Bohm at third, we've had questions about Bohm staying at third fielding, and Gene Segura already doesn't look the most consistent at third. Yeah, he's not good at third. So the question is that going to be a big improvement? Some people would probably have fielding, since Bohm's question mark is fielding, not hitting. So we'll see what happens there, because our fielding kind of sucks too, as we talked about in the group message the past couple of days, making a few bad fielding plays that make us want to rip our hair out as well, to add on to the other negative stuff. So that will be interesting for our fielding numbers. It'll be wonders for our hitting numbers probably, but our fielding numbers, I don't know about that so much.
So let's get to another position battle that, in my opinion, really just shouldn't be a fucking position battle. You have Hazley, who at one point was hitting 600. I think he's at like 438 right now. And then you have Roman Quinn. So I don't know how much you guys pay attention to Roman Quinn's defensive outfield play. He makes a lot of plays, but he is a dog shit route runner. Like, I don't know that he's judged a single baseball off the bat appropriately in his fucking life. I'm pretty sure he was a shortstop second baseman when he got drafted. Out of their second round. And they turned him into an outfielder. And then I don't know, maybe the 49 DL stints that he's had, or IL stints, since it's offensive now, has just taken him out of the rhythm to sit there and field a fly ball. But he looks fucking atrocious. And he's another one who doesn't really do himself any favors in the box. You know, he's hasn't been the biggest of problems offensively, and I acknowledge that. But again, when you have a guy like Hazley, who in all likelihood is your center fielder of the future, this guy just looks like a true stud, a guy who understands what his hitting philosophy is and just maximizes what that skill set is. And it's a damn good defensive player too, better than what I ever thought he was going to be, better than what most scouts thought he was going to be. That guy's got to play every day. Like, that's a guy you could throw theoretically in the 2-hole. Like, we don't know if he can hit lefties yet. He's not really given enough of a shot. But you got to figure it the fuck out. That guy's got to be in the lineup every single day. I'm not huge on the Phil Gosselin love, but I understand in a 60-game season that if someone's hot, you just leave him in the baseball game. That's another guy. Like, these two should be in the lineup every single night right now until they prove that they cannot be. Biscuit, you look like you're waving at something there.
Well, you said it, Shane. That's really my biggest critique of Girardi so far. You have two guys who, when they're seeing action, have been pretty good so far in Barrels and Adam Hazley. And I just don't get why they're not in the lineup more. They're both hot. You really, like you said, in the shortened season, you got to ride the hot bat, and those are two hot bats. And I just don't get why Girardi, like, you have infielders Gene Segura and Scott Kingery both struggling. You have Kutch, who looks really just as lost as those two do. There's ways to get these guys into the lineup, and I understand you might not want to bench those veteran players right away. Well, Scott's not really a veteran, but like in Gene Segura's case and Kutch's case, you might not want to bench those guys right away. But they're not. We could put a productive lineup together with hot bats, and it's just not happening right now. And there's no indication that it's going to get better for Gene. There's no indication that it's going to get better for Scott Kingery right now either, and for Kutch too. All three of them. It just, like with Hoskins today, he had a couple hits. He looked like he was getting back into a groove. Like, he's still getting on base at a good clip. There's still something worth taking there. You're not getting it with those other guys. And at this point, you have to wonder, how much longer can Alec Bohm really be waiting in the wings? It's only a matter of time for me now.
Yeah, I completely agree. He's a guy who, I mean, when drafted, believed that his hit tool was major league ready. Like, he was just ready to go. And at this point, if we understand what we're going to get out of his fielding at this point probably is no better or worse than what we would get out of a Gene Segura. Let's go. Put him in. Call him up. Let's see what happens. Let's get some productive bats in this lineup. One thing I will say about Alec Boehm is that while he did turn on the power at the end of last year, the second half of last year, through his short time here in this system, he has not been a guy that's been able to truly maximize the power that should be in a frame like his. He's been more of a contact guy, which is concerning. So until he finds a way to come through the zone, at a level that gives him more line drive home run power, I'm concerned that he's going to be just another big contact guy, which is not what this lineup needs. At this point, we need people on base, sure, but long term, that's a concern. So it's something he has to figure out, something the Phillies need to figure out. And the only way that they can figure it out is put him in the goddamn game. And that's what's really, really frustrating right now, is we're seeing people night in and night out go out there, make the same mistakes, and have just the same lack of production. While you said it, Biscuit, we got a guy like Alec Boehm waiting in the wings. Another thing we hear too out of camp is the fact that Bryson Stott looks great. He's a guy that, so I had pegged Bryson Stott as a guy that would be a potential September call up this year, maybe even earlier, if things didn't go great up the middle for this Phillies team. That was last year's first round pick, and he was a late addition to kind of the taxi squad roster down there. I think you could see him. I think that that September call up thing could be a legit thing if we start to see these guys continue to not put stuff up. And it would be a good experience. Get him up here in a season that may be lost by that point anyway. Get him up here and let's see what he can do. So let's go to, let me see here. So the way that I wrote all these notes out, it was the way that I legitimately thought them as things were going on. So the whole Gene Segura eats my ass thing. Girardi's nothing but Gabe light. I wrote a bunch of just dumb shit in here. But one thing that I do want to kind of talk about is the fact, and we see this on our CTP Twitter account, which if you're not following us, it's at AMYP Phillies. And then on all of our personals, we undoubtedly see at least 10 times a game. It's analytics, man. It's analytics, man. Hate analytics. I don't know what you can hate about information. I think it's an absolutely weak argument. I think that you should love and embrace this information, and you should find a way to utilize it in a successful manner. Something that this organization has failed to do. We've been behind every curve that you can be behind, and now that we have finally begun to catch up to the curve, we are still misusing all of that information. At this point, we see an incredibly flawed offensive approach. What is it that you need to start seeing out of Joe Dillon and out of these hitters that would give you confidence that we're starting to blend the philosophies together again of that old traditional kind of baseball, a simpler baseball, dare I say, and then finding the guys like an Alec Boehm who you can kind of channel this new wave and say, this is what I need you to do. Andrew, I'll go to you. What kind of things do you need to see at this point from this offense going forward?
I would say not even just on Dillon, but on Girardi as well. Like when we first hired him, we heard how much of a approach he had at like half analytics, half regular baseball, whatever. And I'm not seeing that right now. I feel like it's more strictly analytics, and he's not. And like you said, he's managing it very Gabe-like, and it's not as equal as we thought it was going to be. I mean, we hear his reasoning for why he has Hoskins in the 2-hole, and it's because, and he literally said basically a Gabe answer. He's like, well, it's because Hoskins takes all these pitches, and with him and McCutcheon at the top of the order, it's going to work pitchers, make them throw more, and by the time they get to the Harper and Real Muto, they're going to be those guys are going to have seen a lot more. And with the way Hoskins gets on base, there's a good chance he'll be on base for when Harper and JT come to bat. So I feel like the analytics part is still very overwhelming in the organization right now, and it's not as 50-50 as we first thought it would be. And maybe it's because of the whole pandemic thing going on and everything, and that way. So Girardi's kind of overthinking some things. Like that's not his norm. Because even with the pitching side of it, I feel like it's still there, and how many times he's taking pitchers out and everything. So I feel like it almost starts with Girardi's approach, which will then go probably back down to Dillon and everyone else in the organization. But for the confidence standpoint, I'd say it start with the players and like the way they approach it. I think it's all kind of in their heads at this point. And I mean, just as I know people are gonna be laughing and it's gonna be good for the meme business and everything, but just seeing like how much Hoskins, like when he got that infield single today and he like throws his hands up and like I get it, like I get it, the emotion there, but like even that, like that just shows how impactful the beginning of the season has been for him and how much it is in their heads. So I feel like everything right now is almost a mental game, and maybe it's on Dylan to kind of just ease their approach and try to get them to just start having fun again, because it really doesn't look like any of them are having fun out there. And I know that's kind of sounds like an easy way out of it, but like, and when you look at like baseball players, when they're at their best, they're having fun with the game and everything, and that's baseball's meant to have fun, not just the whole strict like go at each other and everything in that sense. And I feel like that's something that's really lacking in the Phillies clubhouse. It doesn't look like anyone's enjoying themselves.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think they just are, like I said earlier, they're over trying at the plate, and a lot of guys are just not staying within themselves. I also think what'll fix the lineup is, well, first, what'll fix us reacting in postgame is Girardi to not talk like Gabe Kapler every day. But
hey, for what it's worth, Gabe's Giants right now are a better and more successful baseball team than the Philadelphia Phillies.
No. Gabe's a fine manager. I'm just talking about for Philly, you don't want to talk like Gabe Kapler if you want to be liked. Like, that's not the strategy you want to employ here. So you probably want to stop doing that fairly quickly, as Andrew and others have brought up he does in past podcasts. So I just think this team needs to, kind of like Rob used the phrase earlier, get their head out of their own ass. They need to actually play the game of baseball they're supposed to play. Kutch doesn't play like he's playing now. He's not a guy that's supposed to. He looks at a lot of pitches, but he also has been missing some that Andrew McCutchen would never miss. And he's also looked at some Andrew McCutchen normally would never look at. So everything's out of funk. And I think what Andrew said is perfect, because how Reese went like this when he got the first, sometimes it's that old cliche. Once you get that first hit to get you feeling good, no matter if it's a piece of crap bloop, all of a sudden you're just like, holy crap, I can hit again.
Oh, look at Acuna Jr. too.
Yeah, exactly. Acuna is a perfect example. That's what I think happened to Reese, and hopefully Kutch gets a hit like that, because that obviously was just a dead ball grounder to get a run earlier in the first game. Hopefully Kutch gets something like that, and we really need Gene to get something like that.
Yeah,
definitely.
So
go ahead,
absolutely. Rob. I just want to say I pretty much agree with what Andrew said as well. I think that Girardi is leaning too much towards the analytics thing. I know that analytics, although I've been an outspoken critic of it, you know that there is a place for it in the game baseball, and it does hold importance towards offensive strategizing, but he's been too reliant on it. He's been, like Andrew said, too close to what Kapler was. He's not close to, I guess, what we expected in like the 50-50 kind of half analytics, half eye test kind of thing. He's been a little bit too analytical there. I think that's holding them back a little bit. And another thing, I've been critical mostly of Reese when it comes to this, but I think it kind of goes to the whole lineup. They need to be able to stay with pitches and go to the opposite field. It feels like every single guy in the lineup is trying to pull the ball, and that's not going to work. I mean, Reese is a big dude. He has opposite field power if he wants to use it. He can hit a ball out to right field if he wants to. JT, we've seen him do it. Scotty, we've seen him do it. Like, what's with trying to pull the ball? If you just stay on the ball. Approach. Yeah, exactly. If you stay on the ball, if you hit it to basically where it's pitched, if it's on the outside half of the plate and you can take it to the opposite field, that opens up so much offensively. And I think that's a big thing. They just need to stop trying to pull the ball. That'll help them a lot.
There's a simplification in hitting where you sit there and you hear it all the time. You hear older commentators say, just see the ball, hit the ball. It's as simple as that. And kind of is. It's not to say that you'll find success with it, but you will find a groove. At a certain point, you do need to simplify what it is that you do in the box, simplify the way that you think in the box, and maybe, check out of some of those analytical things and just say, I'm going to get in the box and I'm going to react because I know that I have fast enough hands to do so. And one thing that these guys don't do, and this is across baseball, this is not just a Phillies problem. Guys really don't let baseballs get deep into the box anymore. Don't get deep across that plate. Like, there are not guys looking actively looking to go to the opposite field gap. I know my entire life as a hitter, I was always taught when you work out, when you warm up, everything you want to take to the opposite field gap. You want to see these baseballs as deep as possible, and you want to be able to connect with the fat part of the bat with your hands not yet, quote, broken, and drive that power through it. That way you're always making solid contact. And when you can do that, you start to realize just how fast your hands are. And then the inside pitches, you pull those hands in, and you still get the fat part of the bat on the ball, and you just roke one. It's insane. Same thing on the outer half of the plate. Now you just extend those hands just a little bit. Not so much that you're casting, but enough that you're still sitting there and getting the fat part of the bat with authority. And that's something the Phillies don't do. Borek.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things I was going to save to the end, but I'll just bring it up now, was, did anyone get taught how to hit like this damn team? Because, like, I'm glad that you brought that up, because, like, how this team hits, you would never in a million years be taught to hit. It's just not a good method. You're looking at 2 pitches down the middle, because 3 would be a strikeout, and then
some of them
swinging at one that's like 3 feet out of the strike zone. That's not really the method of success, where I don't understand the whole methodology that we started from. And then we started from our system up, so then we screwed up our entire system too. So it just...
Well, you had to advance with the game.
Yeah.
Like these guys, and I will say this is a difficult era of baseball to watch for people who aren't patient. Because at this point, we're seeing people who found success and got into this league hitting one way. And then the game changed and the game evolved, and we figured out how to beat these pitchers who just started adding 5 and 8 miles an hour to these fastballs and just devastating spin and break on the off-speed stuff. When you sit there and you see this kind of happen, these guys are now in panic mode and saying, shit, what I've done and how I've approached this my entire life, I may not find the same success. So what is it that the rest of the league is doing that I can then attempt to do? And that's why you start seeing these guys. Being a 300 hitter really isn't that impressive anymore for a power guy. If they hit 250 but hit 50 home runs, that's a good fucking year now. That wasn't that way 15 years ago. You know, when Ryan Howard's average began to dip, we were concerned. He was still hitting 38 home runs, but we were concerned because he wasn't a 300 hitter. Well, the game has evolved. These guys are now trying to blend the approach that they grew up with and found success with and ultimately got them into the major leagues. And they're now having to unlearn some of those things and then relearn new things to sit there and find success and to see a 98 mile an hour fastball as opposed to an 88 mile an hour fastball. It's just a different game. And these guys are tough. This next wave of talent, they will have grown up their entire lives with iPads, looking at launch angles and figuring out where to put their hands and what they're doing with their hips and how their shoulders are flying out. They're going to be able to sit there and know by the degree what's going on. And that's just not the way that a lot of this era of baseball was brought up. It's just kind of how it goes.
I was going to say the hitter I normally tell everybody to look at to be a micro or like a perfect example of perfection is usually Blackman. Because if he gets a pitch on the outside, he's going to hit it the other way. If he gets one on the inside, he's probably going to hit it almost out of Coors Field sometimes. And then he also goes straight to center field. He's a lefty that just hits it wherever you want to hit it. He's the left-handed hitter. That's usually the model to show somebody how to hit the ball wherever it's pitched. So,
well, I was going to say, look at I don't know how much of a leader and outspoken he is in the clubhouse, but look at Jay Bruce is one of your hottest hitters right now. I mean, I think it was yesterday's game, I believe, when they went inside on him and he just hit it right down the third base line.
For the double.
the one that went inside on him for the opposite field hit there. So I mean, some guys are still doing it, and hopefully, again, I don't know how. You never really hear what kind of person he is in the clubhouse or anything, so I don't know how outspoken he is and willing to be, but like if some of these guys can learn from him, I mean, he's been in the league for however many years. He's 33 years old, so he's been there for a while. So if they can kind of look up to him and see some of that, hopefully he can help and change some of that as well.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. So we're rapidly approaching the hour mark here. So just 2 quick other things that I want to touch on. One, and this will be really super quick. If I suck at my job, I get fired. I don't know that I've ever watched worse and more inconsistent umpiring than I did in this Atlanta series so far. The amount of times that we could have gotten out of innings that didn't have to get away from us, it's inexcusable. At a certain point, guys lose their starting jobs. Guys go to the bullpen. Guys lose those bullpen jobs and get thrown out the game and go down to AAA. They get outright and they start playing in independent leagues. Why? Because someone doesn't make the appropriate calls and things spiral. Now you still got to make the next pitch, but that's deflating. That's tough. What we saw tonight was we saw an inning get away from Spencer Howard. We saw earlier in game 1, I believe it was, in that 5th inning or so, I want to say, stuff kind of get away from him. We saw it in the Yankee series with was it the Yankee series? I can't remember. We've seen it all year, but it's been bad. One of the worst things that baseball ever could have done was put that fake little box up there, because now we can see just how bad they are. And that's a fucking issue. So I don't know how you fix that, but at a certain point, I'd like them to sit in front of a camera after a game 2 and have people ask them about how well they executed in their job, because they are pretty fucking bad.
Well, Shane, there's an easy fix. Get rid of the box.
I mean,
nobody knows what the strike zone is.
I've always said get rid of the box. Like, guys like me will sit there and look at this and still understand that was a ball or that was a strike. But for the casual looker, you're going to sit there and you're going to look at this pitch and you're going to just be like, oh, well, yeah, I guess it was outside, or I guess that was on the black.
It just makes me more angry when the calls don't go our way and they're in the box, and
yep.
I'd like to do away with them for that reason alone.
Me too. Brock said something. Go ahead, Andrew.
I was gonna say it's okay. We got robot umpires coming in soon.
And that's what Brock was alluding to earlier. Saying, it's all right. We'll be electronic one of these days. And he's not wrong.
Electronic strike zone.
It's looking to me. I hate the fact that there's the human element of this game and all sports is kind of gone away. It's something that I've always believed, and I think it aids to the emotion of a game. I think when umpires are that bad, you should see managers ejected, and it should lift the team. I just think that there is a lot removed from this game now that could really help. But on that same and similar thought, this team right now, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I know for me, growing up, as I sat there and I was like, man, I want to play for the Phillies when I get older, and like people would be like, oh man, I want to play for Seattle. That was the 106 win team or whatever it was when I was growing up, and I'd sit here and I'd watch all these other stadiums and I'd watch all these other fans in these cities. I'm not overly impressed by anything, but you come to Philly because this is a different animal. This is a different environment. A lot of these guys sign up to come here to play to Philadelphia. When you take the emotion out of this city and out of that stadium, I think it's a really hard environment to play in. I actually think that this team would benefit from the fact that you could get, not that we can have live fans in there right now, and I'm not suggesting that we do that by any stretch, but I think it's tough. I think that next year, this time, if fans are back allowed in these stadiums, I think you'll see Kutch's slump that he's in kind of end quicker. I think that Scott Kingery might end this thing a little quicker. I think that Rhys Hoskins might still be fucking Rhys Hoskins. I don't know. Gene Segura, same thing. I don't know. But I do think that there's a lift that we as fans provide them. And not having that in the ballpark and having that just pumped in, I think it's hard, and these guys know it's disingenuous. I don't know how you guys feel about the impact of no fans at this point now that we've seen it through 3 series. But for me, I think it looms incredibly large here in Philadelphia. Rob, what do you think?
You know what? I was actually thinking about this myself earlier today, and I do agree with that. Some of the players, they feed off that energy in the stands. They feed off of those fans who are sitting there right in front of them who have expectations for them. Right now they're going up there. There's nobody in the stands to boo them when they make an error. There's nobody in the stands to boo them when they strike out with the bases loaded or ground into a double play or something like that. And I think that kind of, I don't know how to say it. Kind of it reduces the pressure on them, but not in a good way. Like some of these guys, when they go out there in front of a live crowd, they kind of benefit from the added pressure of having to play well. That's the extra push that they need to go out there and give the best performance that they possibly can. You see that, I think you're right with guys with like Kutch and guys like Kingery, and I don't know about Hoskins, and I'd say probably not with Segura, but I think definitely with Kutch and with Kingery, and it's a big deal. Yeah, sure, we have that group of people that hangs out behind Ashburn Alley in center field, and they have all the theatrics and whatnot going on out there, but that only has so much of an effect. I think that, a lot of guys in that lineup, and Bryce is one too, even though Bryce has has played fairly well this year. I think he's one of those guys who also benefits from the energy of the crowd and the emotion of the crowd.
As do I. Biscuit, you were going to jump in.
Well, Rob kind of touched on it. I wanted to bring up the Fandemic crew because I love it. I think it's great. I think really everything with Aaron Boone and the jokes that inspired with him. And I think what could be neat is I think this really does have potential to catch on. I think if the Phillies do go, dare I say, on a run this season, and by mid to late September we're playing some pretty meaningful games, and who knows, maybe even get into the postseason, I think this is something that's going to only get bigger and bigger, and it might in a way make it will never be the same, obviously, but in this kind of environment, it might kind of give the Phillies a home field advantage edge that I feel like baseball is missing right now, because it seems like this group has the potential to get in people's minds and fuck with people. So I like it. I think it really has. I think it has the potential to just keep growing.
This is the best wolf pack in the history of wolf packs here in Philadelphia. So I wholeheartedly agree. So it's, score one for Philly here.
It's fun.
Coming out, and in a season where we haven't had very much, I think it's important to sit there and have something.
Did you see people with the ladders, like when the games in the MLB games in Williamsport, people get those big ass ladders to try to see over the? Yeah, that was funny.
Oh, for sure. All right, so we're gonna roll to some final thoughts and some ads and things like that here. But before we do, I just want to start with my actual final thought. Biscuit, this is the first time that you're on video with us, and everything that we do here, we share one kind of piece from our studio background, and you of course have the Phillies suck thing. So I'm going to share something from the both of us here. Do you realize we 100% look like brothers? We look like the same fucking person.
Dude, you know what? My girlfriend actually brought that up to me.
It's very weird.
My girlfriend brought that up to me before. You sent a picture of yourself in our group chat, and she was looking over my shoulder, and she said, "That almost looks like you in about 5 to 10 years."
Man, I hope that it is not you in 5 to 10 years. But I'm
not heading on. Yeah.
Honestly, you could probably throw the two of you and Borek together. You guys all have the longer kind of hair and the beards going on.
So.
My girlfriend also said Borek.
Nice.
She said that the other night too. She was like, "It's something about the beards, man."
I think it is. It's like the reddish blondes that we have. I think that's what it is. You guys are right. All right, we're beard brothers.
Well, I've also been lazy as shit and haven't wanted to get a haircut recently in pandemic mode.
I'm mine out too, man.
Yeah,
I'm living my best life right now. No ACL and all. All right. Now that we have my
Dwan Blair, you changed the Dwan Blair of the group.
Thanks, ass. We're going to roll to everybody's final thought and any particular ads that you may or may not have this week. We didn't really prepare too much for this one. We jumped on this pod a little early to get some raw emotion that Sean stole from us now that we waited 25 minutes after the game to start recording. But I'm going to start over there with Rob. Rob, final thoughts and any particular ads or things that you'd like to drop in.
My final thought, I can't talk. My final thought is right behind me. And for those who are listening and not watching a video, it says Fire Clintac. And it's something that I know, Biscuit, you've got your thing going on with sign JT. You're going to say that every single time until they sign him. I'm going to say this every single time until they fire Matt Clintac.
I like it,
Please,
Rob.
Phillies, just do it, man. Just end the pain and suffering already. Good Lord, man. It's something that needs to happen.
Love it. All right, let's go to our sign JT, man. Biscuit, my first beard brother of the pod. What's your final thought for the day?
As Rob alluded to, it's going to be signed JT Realmuto. Obviously, he's been playing really well lately. He got off to kind of a slow start with the Miami Marlins series, but he really came around the last couple of days, and it's been fun to watch. I also want to say, final thought, I think the Phillies come out tomorrow. They come back with a good game, had a really bad showing with both games with the offense today. I think they come out tomorrow, put up some runs. Nola has a good game, and hopefully we get a little momentum heading into the to the Orioles season. I think this division is still winnable. It looks like the Braves are going to be probably our biggest Achilles heel so far. But these other teams in our divisions, obviously the Miami Marlins are playing pretty well, but I haven't been convinced by anyone else, and I don't think the Marlins' success will continue. So I still think there's hope for us Phillies. So the sun will come out tomorrow.
All right.
So it's not always sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, it certainly is not, man. And on that thought, Borek, I'm going to roll to you. Any final thoughts or ads or anything you want to jump in there with?
Mine would just be how I've been saying it. We have another pitcher that we joked around yesterday. Maybe we have 3 guys top 5 in the Cy Young now. Because Nola's look good, but Wheeler's going to continue to look good. Jake, I don't think will be top 5, but we joked about it yesterday. If it happens, that would be fantastic. But Wheeler and Knowles definitely have a chance to be top 5 if they keep pitching the rate they're pitching. And then maybe Jake will be like a cool 18 in the voting. So
that's
we'll
fine.
still
I
have
accept.
Good top 20 pitcher. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, roll to Andrew here. Andrew, any final thoughts or ads or anything you'd like to bid in?
Ads wise, if you're a big video game player and like video games, go check out my brother's podcast at the Caffeine Co-op podcast. His Twitter is at the _ Philly Gamer. Again, if you like video games, him and his friend always talk a lot of good video game stuff on there, so go check him out. And then my final thought, going away from the Phillies, is baseball, time to force Manfred out and get a new commissioner, because I'm already tired of these new rules, from the doubleheader 7-inning games to the 3-batter minimum to the whatever one I'm missing, the DH. I already miss pitchers batting and all the double switches that we see in the National League. So MLB, get a new commissioner.
I fully support that. I do loathe all the new rules. All right, so my final thought here, I have several actual final thoughts outside of the Beard Brother comments. First of all, give a follow to the Whiskey Ramble podcast. It's at Whiskey Ramble PC. Not because we are, but because we couldn't fit the word podcast on there. That is a show that I do with my buddy Steve. We are bringing that one back in the next week or two. He's going to be on another pod tomorrow night advertising it, so I figured I should probably say something tonight. Brotherly Pod, we should continue to support them and help them, the High and Wide podcast as well. Those are great guys over there for some good Flyers content. The True Philadelphian Sportcast, which have 2 of our very own on here. We have Joe and Andrew both sporting that. Pub Sports Radio and 48 other podcasts from Andrew you can continue to support. I know that all his links are somewhere in any one of his bios. Disciples of Ed podcast over there with Rob, which we assume we'll probably get some of that back on track as well, depending on how things go.
Yes, sir. Aiming for later this week before the playoffs start, before the next round of playoffs start.
Next round playoffs, sure. Number 1 seeded Flyers, by the way. The only good thing in this city.
Woo!
But that was very, very mannish of you. That was Borek, by the way. And then, as always, visit our guys over there at Just Food, 215-794-3663. Asian Rob, I swear, will give you a mouthgasm, which is not as weird as it sounds. It will be provided with food and only food, I believe, unless he's single. I can't recall. But Just Food, it's out of Buckingham Green Shopping Center in Buckingham, PA. So it's 215-794-FOOD, 215-794-3663. We also have a new Facebook page up, thanks to Biscuit, my first beard brother. We have an Instagram now, thanks to me, someone who doesn't know how to operate it. And we're going to be a bigger presence all the way across the board at this point. But, guys, this was a dog shit Sunday. I hope to God when we talk again on Tuesday night, we have some better shit to talk about. But we're going to sign this one out here for Chase'n The Pennant Podcast. Currently, only Chasing the Cup Podcast is what we're going to now be renamed, at least for the duration of the Flyers run. Sorry, Sean. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. For Andrew, for Borek, for Rob, and for Biscuit, I am Shane of the Chase'n The Pennant Podcast. We'll see you guys next week.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back, hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a rib or two, he beat me Sunday through and through, and so jiggle over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.